It's quite a marvelous thing when a country is born. In 1830, a plucky little nation we know as Belgium decided it had had quite enough of being part of the United Kingdom of the Netherlands. After the Belgian Revolution, it declared its independence, and with that came the rather pressing need for all the trappings of a proper, grown-up state. You need a flag, of course, a national anthem, a monarch, and crucially, your own money. Before this, the Dutch guilder was the coin of the realm. But a new nation needs a new currency to truly assert its identity. It's a statement, you see, a tangible piece of sovereignty you can hold in your very own hand. So, in 1832, the fledgling Belgian government got to work. They established a decimal system, which was terribly modern and sensible for the time. The main unit was the franc, divided into 100 centimes. While silver francs were needed for larger transactions, the humble, everyday business of buying bread or a newspaper required something smaller. This is where copper entered the story. The very first Belgian copper coins were minted, the 1, 2, 5, and 10 centime pieces. These weren't just functional bits of metal. They were miniature billboards for the new kingdom, designed to circulate far and wide and announce to the world, and to its own people, that Belgium was here to stay. The task of designing these inaugural coins fell to a rather brilliant engraver named Joseph Pierre Brandt. He was the general engraver of the Brussels Mint, a position of no small importance. His work was to create a design that was both elegant and deeply meaningful. Brandt had a knack for classical, clean lines, and he produced a series of coins that were remarkably beautiful for their simplicity. These first coins were made of pure copper, giving them a lovely reddish-brown luster when new, which would darken with age and the touch of countless hands. They were solid, dependable, and very much of their time, setting the standard for decades to come. The introduction of this new coinage was a profoundly important step. Imagine, for a moment, being a Belgian citizen in the 1830s. For years you had conducted your daily business with coins bearing the portrait of a Dutch king. Suddenly, you were using currency that celebrated your own nation, your own constitution, and your own identity. It was a powerful psychological shift. Every time a farmer sold his produce at market, or a child bought a sweet, they were participating in the great national project of building Belgium. The copper centime was more than just money. It was a daily affirmation of independence and a symbol of a shared future. Now, when you're designing a nation's first coins, you can't just plonk any old thing on them. The symbols you choose have to say something profound. Joseph Pierre Brandt understood this perfectly. For the obverse of the new copper centimes, he chose a magnificent emblem: the Belgian lion. This wasn't just a random big cat. The Leo Belgicus, or Belgian lion, has been a heraldic symbol for the Low Countries for centuries. It represents courage, strength, and nobility. By placing it front and center, Brandt was connecting the new kingdom to a long and proud history, showing that while the state was new, its spirit was ancient and resilient. Surrounding the lion was a motto that is, quite frankly, one of the best a country could have. L'union wanartandas. Nion, fait la force. In English, this translates to unity makes strength. This was a direct message to the Belgian people. The new nation was composed of different regions with distinct cultures, and, importantly, two major language groups, French and Dutch speakers. The motto was a plea, a declaration, and a guiding principle all in one. It acknowledged that Belgium's survival and prosperity depended on its diverse peoples working together. It was a remarkably forward-thinking sentiment to bake into the very fabric of the country's money. On the reverse side of the coin, Brandt placed another clever design. Instead of a monarch's head, which was the norm in most European kingdoms, he engraved the denomination, the value of the coin, within a simple wreath. Above it, he placed the monogram of the very first king of the Belgians, Leopold I. This was a subtle but important choice. It honored the monarch but kept the focus on the state and its people. This design reinforced the idea of a constitutional monarchy, where the king reigned but the nation and its laws were paramount. It was a democratic touch, you might say, on a profoundly royal object. These early coins also had some rather interesting physical quirks that get collectors terribly excited. Some of the first issues were struck on planchets, or blank coin discs, that were originally intended for Dutch coins. This means you can sometimes find Belgian coins struck over the faint impression of a Dutch design, a literal stamping out of the old regime. Furthermore, there are variants like the wide rim or plain edge versions, small manufacturing differences that make certain pieces incredibly rare. It's these little imperfections and variations that tell a human story of the minting process and make the hobby of numismatics so utterly fascinating. For several decades, pure copper served Belgium perfectly well. The coins of Leopold I were handsome, substantial, and did their job admirably. However, the world of the late 19th century was one of rapid industrialization and change. The price of raw materials, including copper, began to fluctuate. Minting coins from pure copper started to become a rather expensive business. A government must always keep an eye on its ledgers, and if the metal in a coin is worth more than its face value, you have a serious problem. People might be tempted to melt the coins down, which is generally frowned upon. To solve this conundrum, mints across Europe began experimenting with new materials. The solution was the alloy. By mixing copper with other, less expensive metals, you could create a material that was just as durable, but significantly cheaper to produce. Belgium was no exception to this trend. During the reign of Leopold II, who succeeded his father in 1865, the Belgian mint began its transition away from pure copper. The new metal of choice was copper-nickel, a silvery white alloy that was tough, resistant to corrosion and, most importantly, cost-effective. It marked a significant shift in the country's coinage. The first copper-nickel coins appeared in the 1860s, starting with the 5 and 10 centime pieces. They looked and felt entirely different from their pure copper predecessors. They were smaller, lighter, and had a modern, almost industrial appearance. This change wasn't just about saving money, it reflected the spirit of the age. The late 19th century was a time of scientific progress and engineering marvels. Moving from a traditional metal like copper to a modern alloy like copper-nickel was a small but symbolic step into a new era of technological advancement. The coins were no longer just emblems of national identity, but also products of industrial ingenuity. This change also had a practical benefit for the public. The new coins were more convenient. Being smaller and lighter, they were less cumbersome to carry around in a pocket or purse. While the old large copper 10 centime piece had a certain satisfying heft, a handful of them could certainly weigh you down. The shift to alloys was, therefore, a win-win. The government saved money on production, and the public received a more practical and modern form of currency. The age of pure copper was drawing to a close, replaced by the efficiency and economy of the alloy. It was a quiet revolution, happening one coin at a time. As Belgium matured as a nation, one of its defining characteristics became increasingly prominent: its linguistic duality. While French had been the language of the government and the elite since the country's founding, a growing movement sought official recognition for the Dutch language, spoken by a majority of the population in the northern region of Flanders. This societal shift began to find expression in one of the most official places imaginable: the nation's currency. Under Leopold II, a monarch who oversaw vast industrial and colonial expansion, the coins of the realm started to speak in two languages. Previously, all inscriptions on Belgian coins, including the famous motto, were exclusively in French. However, starting in the 1880s, a monumental change occurred. The Belgian mint began producing coins with Dutch inscriptions. This was a hugely significant political and cultural statement. For the first time, coins were minted with the country's name written as België instead of Belgica, and the denominations were written in Dutch, for example, centiamen instead of centimes. The powerful motto also received its Dutch translation: Jou eintreisen over Ostederie der den over Schuur ar eierketen kwai Schuur ar I Schuur ar o my cry uttered. It was a tangible acknowledgement of the nation's Flemish identity. Initially, the mint didn't produce a single bilingual coin. Instead, it adopted a rather clever system. It minted two separate versions of each coin, one with all French text and another with all Dutch text. This meant that in any given year, two distinct sets of coins were released into circulation. A shopkeeper in Bruges might give you change with Dutch inscriptions, while another in Liège might hand you French ones. This practice continued for many decades and created a fascinating legacy for collectors, who now seek to acquire both the French and Dutch variants for each year of issue. This linguistic duality on the coinage tells a story that is central to understanding modern Belgium. The coins became a mirror of the ongoing political dialogue and the delicate balancing act required to maintain national unity. The decision to represent both languages was a crucial step in recognizing the country's composite culture. It transformed the coins from being simply instruments of commerce into symbols of a complex, multicultural national identity. Every transaction, no matter how small, became a subtle reminder of the kingdom's two great linguistic communities and the principle of unity that was meant to bind them together. The turn of the 20th century brought with it immense turmoil, and no event shaped Belgium more profoundly than the First World War. When Germany invaded in 1914, the country faced occupation, devastation, and extreme resource shortages. This crisis had a dramatic impact on coinage. Metals like copper and nickel were suddenly vital strategic materials, needed for shell casings, wiring, and other military applications. Continuing to mint coins from these valuable resources became impossible. The Belgian government, operating in exile, had to find alternatives, while inside occupied Belgium, a different set of emergency money emerged. During the war, the official minting of copper-nickel coins ceased. To fill the void, the German occupying forces introduced coins made from cheaper, less critical metals. Zinc became the material of choice. These zinc coins were dull, gray, and prone to corrosion, a grim reflection of the hardship and scarcity of the times. They were purely functional, lacking the artistic elegance of their pre-war predecessors. For the Belgian people, being forced to use currency issued by an occupying power, made from a cheap and ugly metal, was a constant, tangible reminder of their loss of sovereignty and the ongoing conflict. One of the most interesting numismatic developments of this era was the introduction of the hold coin. The idea was simple. By punching a hole in the center of the coin, you could make it instantly distinguishable from other denominations of a similar size, especially helpful for the visually impaired. It also saved a small but not insignificant amount of metal. After the war, Belgium embraced this innovation. The new 5, 10, and 25 centime pieces, designed by the talented engraver Alphonse Michaud, all featured a central hole. This became a signature feature of Belgian low-denomination coinage for much of the 20th century. Alphonse Michaud's designs for these post-war coins were also notable for their new imagery. While the lion remained a key symbol, new motifs appeared that celebrated the working people of Belgium. The 25 centime coin, for instance, featured the head of a miner wearing a helmet and lamp, a direct tribute to the country's vital coal mining industry. This was a democratic evolution in coin design, moving beyond royal monograms and classical symbols to honor the ordinary laborers who were rebuilding the nation. The coins of this period are a testament to Belgium's resilience, its capacity for innovation in the face of adversity, and its growing appreciation for its industrial working class. After the immense disruptions of two world wars, Belgium entered a period of reconstruction and relative stability. Its coinage, however, continued to evolve, reflecting economic realities and changing tastes. The franc, which had been a strong currency in the 19th century, suffered from inflation throughout the 20th. This meant that the smallest denominations, the 1 and 2 centime pieces, gradually became almost worthless. Their purchasing power dwindled to practically nothing, and the cost of minting them eventually exceeded their face value. As a result, these historic copper coins were phased out of circulation, marking the end of an era. The remaining low-value coins, like the 25 and 50 centime pieces, continued to be produced, but their composition changed again. While copper remained a key component, it was now primarily used in alloys like bronze or as a plating over a cheaper core metal like steel. The 50 centime coin from the latter half of the 20th century, for example, is a classic bronze coin featuring the head of a miner, a design that endured for decades as a symbol of Belgian industry. These coins were workhorses, facilitating millions of daily transactions, but they lacked the grandeur and weight of their 19th century ancestors. The final chapter for the Belgian franc began as the project of European integration gained momentum. The decision to create a single European currency, the euro, was a monumental one. For countries like Belgium, it meant saying goodbye to a currency that had been a symbol of national identity for over 170 years. The run-up to the changeover in 2002 was a period of transition. The last Belgian franc coins were minted, and the nation prepared to adopt a new currency that it would share with its neighbors. It was a bittersweet moment, representing both an end and a new beginning. On the 1st of January 2002, the euro officially became Belgium's currency. The familiar francs and centimes were withdrawn from circulation, replaced by new euro and cent coins. The new euro cents did, in a nod to tradition, contain copper. The 1, 2, and 5-cent coins are made of copper-plated steel, giving them a reddish hue reminiscent of the very first Belgian centimes. However, their design is standardized on one side across the Eurozone, with only the reverse national side featuring a Belgian design, the portrait of King Albert II. The era of uniquely Belgian copper coinage, with its lions, mottos, and miners, had come to a peaceful and definitive end. Though they no longer jingle in the pockets of Belgians, the old copper and alloy centimes have found a vibrant new life in the world of collectors. For numismatists, these coins are more than just obsolete money. They are miniature historical documents. Each coin tells a story about the era in which it was made, its politics, its economy, and its artistic sensibilities. Assembling a collection of Belgian centimes is to trace the journey of a nation, from its revolutionary birth to its integration into modern Europe. It's a wonderfully tactile way to connect with history. The appeal for collectors lies in the sheer variety. One could spend years trying to acquire every date and variation. The quest for both the French and Dutch language versions for each year is a classic challenge. Then there are the rarities that get a collector's heart pounding. These include the early overstrikes, where a Belgian design is faintly visible over a Dutch one, or the wide rim variants from the 1830s. Errors, such as a coin struck off-center or with a die crack, are also highly prized, as they offer a unique glimpse into the occasional fallibility of the minting process. The artistic and symbolic value of these coins cannot be overstated. The Belgian lion, roaring across a century of designs, remains a powerful symbol of national pride and strength. The motto, in both its French and Dutch forms, speaks to the core challenge and ideal of the Belgian state, finding strength in unity. The evolution of the designs, from the classical elegance of Brandt to the working-class realism of Michaud, reflects the changing ways in which Belgium saw itself. These are not just designs, they are statements about what the nation valued at different points in its history. Ultimately, the history of Belgian copper coins is the history of Belgium in miniature. They began as a bold declaration of independence, evolved to reflect the country's linguistic complexity, endured the hardships of war, and finally gave way to a new European identity. For those who take the time to look closely, these humble discs of metal offer a rich and fascinating insight into the soul of a nation. They are a testament to the idea that even the smallest objects can carry the greatest weight of history, reminding us of where a nation has been and how it became what it is today. Quite interesting.